Hello, and welcome back to the Empowered to Lead podcast. This is a space for therapists who are building and growing a group practice. And primarily, I'm talking to Canadians, but I think this applies wherever you are listening to this from. Today, we're going to be talking about building a team that you actually enjoy leading. And so this is a bit of a follow-up to Kathryn Atkinson's episode, which was released on March 3rd of 2026. So if you're coming back and you're catching up on all the podcasts, I actually would suggest that you go and check out that conversation first, because it gives a little bit of context to what we're talking about. So I just wanted to start with reflecting on her episode. Kathryn is somebody that I met in person for the first time at one of my retreats. And one of the things that has just stuck with me about her, she is a thoughtful, grounded leader who has built something remarkable on Vancouver Island in BC in a fairly short amount of time. She has grown to 5 locations, and that was back in September. I'm pretty sure she's added one since then. She has a clear vision of where she wants to take this group and a team that she genuinely wants to be around. And while we recorded that episode back in September, and a few things have changed and evolved for her, her core approach has not. And one of the things that struck me most about talking with her wasn't the pace of her growth. It was why she grew. She said something early on in our conversation that I keep coming back to and reflecting on. I want to collect good people. That's my vision. So my vision is about the practitioners and less about growth or location. She will add a location because somebody on her team or she finds somebody really good, and because they are valuable to her, she'll add a location. So I'm going to say that again. I want to collect good people. That's my vision. So my vision is about the practitioners and less about growth or location. So this shows up for Kathryn in almost everything she does as a GPO. How she talks about her team, what she tries to do for them, and the approach that she takes to problem solving. Because here's the truth. For most of us, the goal isn't all about the head count. It isn't about the square footage or the number of office doors. The goal is the people behind those doors and whether they're showing up in a way that reflects what your practice is actually about. What are your core values? What are you trying to be in the community? And most group practice owners that I talk to care deeply about the therapist experience of their group practice and the culture that exists. Because if your therapist ain't happy, you won't have good therapist or client retention. What I started to say, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. But that translates into, if your therapists aren't happy, you aren't happy as a group practice owner either. And that trickles out into your group and the culture. And I would say your culture can change. It shows up, it morphs, it changes depending on the size of your group practice and the people that you have in there. And so having an overall vision of what's important to you, what your values are, what you're aiming for is important to have. And then flexibility in there for how does this actually show up? So I know with Panorama Wellness, that shifted and changed in different seasons of our group. When we were small and just starting out, we were starting in COVID time. And so our first Christmas dinner together was on Zoom, and I had given them skip the dishes card. And so we're all eating different meals and connecting in that way. And then we grew to having pizza or Thai food on a Friday night in the reception area because we were small enough that there weren't people seeing clients on Friday evenings. And then as we grew, it became more important to have someone at the front desk who could chat and laugh with team members, who were there when I wasn't, kind of being an extension of me. And then I created a weekly check-in along with quarterly meetings, because at the core of it, my culture that I wanted to create was connection, knowing that you feel supported, that you can turn to me, that you aren't just a number, you aren't just a machine, you matter in so many different ways. And so that showed up in a bunch of different ways. And at the core of it, we as group practice owners want to build a culture that creates a team that is enjoyable to lead. And so that requires a bunch of different components and flexibility. So what makes a team enjoyable to lead? And I'm actually using that word intentionally here because I think we underestimate how much that piece matters, that I enjoy who I am leading. Your voice in this matters just as much as the therapist's experience of your group practice. So you have built this practice. You carry the risk, the vision, the responsibility. You deserve to actually enjoy the people you work with. And so here are some ways that you can make that happen. Consider alignment. So in that episode, Kathryn talks about collecting people who share the same values as Island Clinical Counseling. She is not just hiring for clinical skills. She's asking, does this person fit? And that doesn't mean that alignment is about everyone being the same. It doesn't mean we have to all be mini-me's of you as the group practice owner. But it is about, are we all pulling in the same direction? Do we have the same alignment? Because if your car is out of alignment, it's a bumpy ride. And the same goes for your group practice. Do you have shared values and communication? So Kathryn was very explicit about this. She says she involves people in her decision-making who really share the same values as Island Clinical Counseling and also have kind of stakes in it as well. That they want it to succeed for themselves as well as for the business and for who it serves. That's one of the sweet spots. People who care about your practice because they care about their own work within it. I also want to be clear that this is how Kathryn sees shared values and communication. This isn't necessarily how I or you would approach things. So to be honest, I was am quite protective of my decision-making process for my group practice. So while I may ask for input or be curious about what others on my team might desire, when it comes to making a certain decision about where we're going and how we're moving forward, it is very clear that I am the one who makes the final decision. And this isn't because I want to be the boss or because I'm the leader and this is my business. It actually is because I am the leader and this is my business. We turn that, even if you hear how I said that to start. So not because I want to be the boss or the leader or this is my business. Don't let that be a negative. It doesn't have to be because I'm the boss and I need to be bitchy about that. But I am the leader. This is my business. And so I created something that my therapist bought into. They joined because they want to be able to take advantage of what I offer as a leader and as a business owner. And so they want to know that they can trust me to make decisions. So they might have a voice. I may consider it, and the buck stops here. And they're quite happy to have that. You want to make sure that there's clear expectations. When it comes to having a team that you enjoy, if there aren't clear expectations on both sides, when expectations are implicit rather than explicit, they actually become resentments on both sides. We'll come back to this a couple times during this conversation. But this is something that is so important, and a lot of us miss because we're timid or we're trying to keep everybody happy. And so you want to make sure that there are clear expectations when you're thinking about, how do I create a team that I actually enjoy? Healthy autonomy is also a piece of creating a team that we enjoy. The majority of us have contractors, and so this can be a bit of a struggle. So for Kathryn, her model is instructive. Her practitioners are individual business owners who pay for a service. There's a structure to that relationship that creates clarity about money, about their role, about what the practice provides for them, and what falls to them. Whatever model that you use, the principle holds. People lead better when they know where their lane starts and ends. People also follow better when they know when their lane starts and ends. So having clarity about where you have autonomy and where you need to follow what I am providing and the structure that makes this business viable is really important. It's also something that a lot of group practice owners struggle with. You're building a team, creating team culture, and it's really hard to let them have autonomy or choice. When you have contractors, this is a balance, and I often describe it as building something where you have your hands open rather than enclosing your team in your hands. And so you want to create something where your contractors, if that's the model that you've chosen, have choice within reason. They have choice within structure. And still, the choices are presented to them of how they show up, what they participate in, what is available to them, and they get to have autonomy. Be clear about what those choices are, and that creates a healthy relationship and a healthy amount of autonomy within your structure, and decreases the opportunity for either you to resent your team or for them to resent you. They know where they end and where you start. And we all know that there are things that can go wrong when we are trying to build a culture or a team that we enjoy. We make mistakes, and there's opportunities for miscommunication or failure. And I want to be honest here, because I think this is where most of us need to have the conversation. There are places where things can go wrong as you build, grow, scale your practice. And if you know me at all, being honest and realistic about the challenges of being a group practice owner is important to me. So here are some ways that I see things going wrong as people lead their group practice. One area is you hire too fast. So going back to Kathryn, she grew quickly. She had 6 practitioners on her opening day. She was intentional about who she said yes to, but 6 is a lot of people to start with. And so she learned. And so one of the things that she learned was she stopped doing interviews alone early on. And she said, I'm going to quote here, "I feel like it's really important to have more people lay eyes on the people that we're going to be bringing in." And so slowing down that hiring process. Fast growth and careful hiring are not mutually exclusive, but fast growth and careless hiring will cost you. So you can hire quickly. You can bring on a bunch of people quickly. So there's a distinction there, because the old adage, hire slow, fire fast, is so important. So I think that it's important to clarify what I mean by you don't want to hire too quickly. That doesn't mean you can't hire more than one person at a time. But if you are just, winging it, or, making some excuses for how this person might fit, or not being really clear on what your business needs, you are going to experience difficulty. I believe it's crucial to create a clear interview and hiring operating procedures. So your SOPs, standard operating procedures, make sure that you are really clear. Where do you post? Who are you posting for? Who are you trying to attract? How do you know if they fit with your culture and your values? What are some measuring sticks that you have along the way in your interview process? And then when you hire them, what's the onboarding process? How do you make sure that they understand the values and where their lanes start and end, what the expectations are? Be really clear and slow down. The longer you take in that interview process and even the onboarding process, the more you can catch things that are a bit of a miss and protect your business and that person from you guys making a mistake. It allows you to be intentional about your team and the growth that you want and how that looks for your group practice. Another area that I think we go wrong or we miss opportunity to lead a team that we really enjoy is we avoid having hard conversations. And this is one of the most common things that I hear, although maybe people don't actually put it this way, that they're avoiding those hard conversations. So how does this show up? It shows up in texting someone rather than having a face-to-face conversation. So avoiding that difficult, that tension that can come. Hoping that someone will leave soon rather than having to be the one who says, this isn't working for me or for my business. So we need to end our relationship. So you're sitting there hoping that if you stop feeding them clients or they'll come to that decision on their own and avoiding the conversation. Or you're venting to anyone and everyone around you, but smiling at the person. Or even more common that I hear is finding ways to avoid interacting with them at any cost. So actual things I've heard, hiding in your office, not leaving until you know that they're in session, and I could go on. When we avoid that conversation, we're not protecting the relationship. We're not protecting our business. We're not protecting us or our team. We're letting resentment build on both sides, and we are not creating a team that we enjoy leading. Do you know how many times I've experienced or heard GPOs say that once they had that difficult or hard conversation, things cleared up? They either got easier with the person who was upset with them or we were upset with, or once they actually pulled the plug and made that decision, let them go, other people on the team come to them and say, oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you saw that this was happening and that you addressed it. Now I feel valued. Maybe they don't use those actual words, but that's the message that comes through. Hire slow, fire fast. Another thing that we want to avoid or that goes wrong when we're trying to build a team that we enjoy is being inconsistent in our leadership skills. So Kathryn named something really important when she talked about overcoming her own people-pleasing tendencies. What I, as Kathryn, would decide might look very different from what I, as the owner of Island Clinical Counseling, would decide. So I have to remember that I am representing the company. It's not about my emotions or even necessarily how would I personally make this decision. What is the right decision for me as a leader and for my business? What moves us forward? And then acting in that. So being consistent as a leader. Inconsistent leadership often comes from this exact place. So I am making decisions as me, as a therapist, as a sensitive person, as a people pleaser, as someone who's trying to keep all of these people here because I'm scared that they're going to leave, rather than making a business decision and as the CEO, as the leader of this business. When you lead from your own anxiety or your need to be liked, your team feels that instability, even if they can't name it. So one thing that we struggle with as therapists is, and turn business owners, is making business decisions rather than emotional ones, or trying to consider everyone's needs rather than the business needs. It's worth repeating. This creates inconsistency, and it is also something that erodes the trust that your team has in you. So they're not sure how you're going to respond. Are you going to respond as a leader making a business decision, or are you going to respond as somebody who wants to be liked? They're not going to know how to approach you. You want to be clear and consistent in how you show up. Another area that goes wrong is a lack of clarity around roles. Even if you don't have specific, like clinical director, a bunch of like employee type relationships, knowing what our role is as leader, what the role is for the practitioner, is related to expectations. So when people don't know what they're responsible for, they either overreach and try super hard, or they under-deliver and kind of get apathetic. And neither is actually their fault. If they don't know what lane they're supposed to be in, they'll mess up and they'll tick you off. And a lot of that comes from us. If we haven't named, this is how I expect our clients to be treated. This is the type of response time that I'm looking for. This is how I can help you show up as an effective therapist who knows how to have difficult conversations, because I don't want to be the one who has to do that all the time. Naming that and being very clear about who's supposed to do what, when things are expected, what the, for lack of a better word, what the pecking order is for your clients and for your team members. Be clear. And then misalignment with values. And this is often the root issue. So we've touched on this a few times already. This is something that goes wrong, both in building your business and in creating a team that you actually enjoy leading. When someone is not a fit, it's not often that this is a sudden development. Most often, there's signals that earlier were overridden by urgency or optimism, something that we tend to discard or downplay, or, the spidey senses were there, but I really just needed someone to fill that spot. Or they said this one thing, but it didn't quite sit right. But maybe that's just because they're nervous in the interview. I'm, 75% sure that this is a person who can be a good fit for us. So find a way to clarify what your business values early on and how that team member or potential team member does or doesn't agree with them or practice in a similar way. A misalignment, if you even think of your body, if you have a misalignment, it eventually causes a fracture or a break, or it causes you 6 weeks of discomfort. And you want to avoid that as much as possible. So let's go on the positive side of things. How do you build a team that you love? What are some things that you want to be aware of and ensure you have in place? So coming to what we just talked about. So hire for alignment first. Skills can grow. Values are much harder to shift. Before you post that listing, be clear on what your practice actually stands for and screen for that explicitly. Know what your core values are for your business. Know who your ideal therapist is. Know who your ideal client is. And screen. Make sure as much as you are able that both you and your applicant are clear on this throughout the process. have screening questions, have screening steps in the interview. Like, one of my core values is being responsive, and I don't know, I'm missing the terminology for it now, but I want to make sure that people are paying attention to detail and that they respond quickly. So my interview and hiring process includes a screening step for that. You want to be explicit about expectations. Write them down, say them out loud, revisit them. So what does a great team member look like in your practice? What are your non-negotiables? Don't assume that people know this. Have them in your onboarding document. Have them in your interview process. Include them in your onboarding meetings. Let's be clear about what expectations are. We've talked about this in a few spots in this episode. If we aren't setting a clear target for our team members, if they don't know what they're shooting their arrows at, or they think it's something. So let's say I'm setting up a target for, you're going to respond to me within 24 hours. But what I say is I am looking for a quick response. They don't know I mean 24 hours. So they're shooting arrows over here at the quick response. And to them, that could be within 3 days, or, I only work once a week. So a quick response for me would be the next time I'm in the office, be clear about what those expectations are. Allow them to shoot arrows at the actual target. Brene Brown says, clear is kind. And this is true as a group practice owner, because when you are clear, you are kind to both yourself and the people who work with you. Know what you want, communicate it, set clear boundaries and expectations, and then hold them and yourself to those. And then lead with consistency. Your team needs to know what to expect from you. This doesn't mean you have to be rigid. It means that your values show up the same way on a hard day as it does on an easy one. Know what your business needs, find ways to take emotion out of those decisions and responses, and be consistent. And then protect your culture. Kathryn talked about feeling protective of her practice the way she feels protective of her child at home. And that instinct is healthy. I would say steer away from calling your practice your baby. You've heard me say that before. But in that sense of I'm protective of this culture, of my team, I want to do that to the nth degree. So that means I'm clear. It means that I'm consistent. It means that I am protective in who is in and who isn't in our team. Your culture is fragile and it's yours to steward. So you can also use that as, if I'm protecting it, I'm saying no to certain applicants, or I'm letting somebody in the team go because their values have changed, or I didn't stay true to clarifying that at the very beginning. That isn't being a bitch. That's protection. And the people who value you and what you're building will appreciate that and champion you in your business as you move forward. Another way to do this is to make decisions from your CEO role, your empowered leader role, not the crisis moment. So this is one that I want to sit with for a second. Kathryn said it is quite addictive to grow a company. So to have people to also be able to say, is that a good idea? Like, maybe we should rein that in. If you listen to Kathryn, she's adding locations because she wants to take care of her team. And at the same time, learning as she grew, there needs to be somebody in place who says, yeah, that's awesome. We want to take care of them. And is that the best step for our business? So Kathryn built a leadership team partly to balance herself, but to have people who would slow her down when that dopamine hit of growth was louder than good judgment, or as I would say it is shiny object syndrome hit because, oh, that sounds fun. Or, oh, they want to do that. Let's let them do that. Let's find ways to make decisions as an empowered leader. You need someone who can help you make a wise decision. So whether that's a business partner, your marriage partner, a coach, a trusted peer in a community like Group Practice Connection, you need someone who will ask you why before you say yes, and that you trust has your business and your needs at the core of that. One of the things I so appreciate about sitting with people who are feeling like they're in that crisis mode and need to make a decision is, as I give them room to breathe, as I reflect what I'm hearing, and then provide some clarity or some questions, the shift in how they view themselves and their business is amazing. If you can find people to do that for you, you go from crisis to clarity, and this helps you, your team, and your culture in so many ways. Feel the emotion. I'm not saying squash that or ignore it. Have a place to vent it, and get people who will challenge you or keep you to your overall vision and goals, and then come back to the conversation with that team member, or take that time and then make that decision, rather than operating from crisis or, again, that shiny object syndrome. So as we wrap up today, I want to present you with a leadership challenge. I'm going to encourage you to name one leadership behavior, just one, that will help you build or rebuild a team that you actually enjoy leading. If there's something that stood out to you in this podcast episode of, oh, I'm not doing that anymore, or, oh, I've let that slack, how can you come back to that? So maybe it's committing to a consistent check-in with your team. Maybe it's finally having a difficult conversation that you've been putting off, or opening the door and being in their space. Maybe it's rewriting your hiring process or your criteria before you post your next role. Whatever it is, I want you to be specific, and I want it to be rooted in your values as a practice owner, not in what someone else told you this is what a good leader does. As Kathryn put it, when she's feeling uncertain, I really want to come back to what are the kind of grassroots foundation of why I'm a counselor and why my group practice exists. That's the question. Why does your practice exist? And how are your leadership behaviors actually reflecting that? So as you do this, send me an email. I would love to hear what you're working on. It's lisa@grouppracticenetwork.ca. And if I can support you in any way, help you to create a team that you actually enjoy leading, I would love to be that person. I want to just give a little plug before I totally close this out. If you're resonating with some of this stuff, if you're feeling like I feel like I'm all alone as I am trying to show up as a leader, maybe coming to one of the retreats that I'm offering is a place for you to find people who get you, who can hold you accountable, to have space away from your business and really reflect on, who am I as a leader? How do I want to show up? I have a couple of offerings. One of them is in Ontario. We're going to be there in October, and really slowing down with a focus as you as a group practice owner, connecting, finding boundaries to protect you and your group practice. The other is more of you as a person, as a therapist. There's going to be some business parts in there as well. And it's in Costa Rica. How can you not rest and connect and have a different view if you're sitting in the jungles of Costa Rica? I would love to have you join us. Check out grouppracticenetwork.ca and consider a retreat in the next year. That's a lot. And I hope that there's something that you're taking away today that really aligns with, who are you as a leader? How do you create a group that you enjoy leading? And I look forward to chatting with you in the next episode. Thanks for hanging out with me on Empowered to Lead, the therapist practice. If you're ready for deeper support, I'd love to see you inside the Group Practice Connection, my monthly membership where Canadian therapists like you get coaching, community, and the tools to build a business that actually supports your life. You can check it out at grouppracticenetwork.ca. We're building something great here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it.
This is Michelle Abraham, and we are honored to have Lisa Catallo's Empowered to Lead podcast on our High Vibe Podcast Network. For more shows like hers and to grab your free gift from the gift fold, head on over to highvibepodcastnetwork.com.